Anakandawadaya, computer just did something unusual. Om Muruga, Taipusam is coming soon here. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And we'll share the screen. There it is. January 29th in Asia. First topic. Answering questions sent into satsang@hindu.org. We've got lots of great questions that are being answered today. In fact, it's our main presentation of the questions with answers. Do the subtle and causal bodies need to reach a certain level of evolution before realization of Paramatma can take place? Pretty sophisticated question. So we have two answers from Gurudeva. One's from a 1967 Yoga Letters I happened to come across. This was something that was published in the Master Course lessons of that time, 1967. There is another great exerciser of our inner nerve currents, and that is using our willpower. This is where the term inner strength comes from. It is through practices such as finishing a job once started, doing each job perfectly, keeping promises, and just living a life in accordance with one's highest ideals that these inner currents are strengthened. So that's the key. We're strengthening inner currents. When a person has been using his inner willpower to accomplish his goals, you can feel his inner strength emanating from within him. When that person sits down to meditate, he will undoubtedly attack his meditation in the same manner, strengthening even further these inner nerve currents. Second answer from Merging with Siva, lesson 52. Keeping this continuity alive and not allowing the external consciousness to reign, the young aspirant lives daily in the clear white light, having occasionally more intense experiences, as just described, while meeting daily chores here and now until he attains the maturity of the nerve fiber, essential to burst his consciousness beyond itself into the pure non-conscious state, nirvikalpa samadhi, the self, which is Paramatma darshana. So that's the answer. Yes, we need to strengthen the nerve currents, the inner bodies, and we do that through using our willpower in the ways Gurudeva suggested, including in meditation. And that idea has the component of the need to have experiences in the world. In other words, one concept of spiritual advancement and realization is we don't need any experiences in the world. We'll just sit in a cave and meditate and achieve the highest goal. Well, it's very hard to sit in a cave and meditate and achieve the highest goal unless you really earned that practice. Most people wouldn't benefit from that practice. So what do we benefit from? Experiences in the world and handling them as Gurudeva suggested, using our willpower. So we need experience, and through the challenges we face in successfully handling these experiences, we strengthen our nerve system. In other words, difficult tasks in the world are good for us to face and succeed at because we strengthen our nerve system. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras has a few verses on the idea of the need for experience. What is experienced has the character of brightness, activity, and inertia. It is embodied in the elements and the sense organs. Its purpose is to provide both experience and liberation. So not just liberation, but experience. Well, we need to have experience to achieve liberation. So comments on the verse. Brightness, activity, and inertia referring to the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And the dual nature of what we're doing, experience and liberation. And my summary is each Purusha, that's the word Patanjali uses, each Purusha needs a certain amount of experience in the world before it is ready to transcend the world through achieving liberation. I look at it like going to school. We need to go to school, but once we finish school, there's no benefit in going back, right? We've graduated. They wouldn't let us back in. So you finished already. You learned what we have to offer. So that's the same as the earth. Once we learn what the earth has to offer, we graduate. We achieve moksha, just like graduating from school. Next question. Is there a difference between the inner eternal soul body of light and Paramatma? Another deep one. So we need, in this type of question, what I always do is look it up in our Himalayan Academy lexicon, and that's in the back of each of the trilogy books, and it's usually online. Temporarily, the online version is under repair. So you have to look it up in the physical book. It's the same lexicon in each of the three books. It doesn't change according to what's in the book. Paramatman, Supreme Self or Transcendent Soul, that's the literal meaning. Parashiva, Absolute Reality, the one transcendent self of every soul. Contrasted with Atman, which includes all three aspects of the soul, Parashiva, Parashakti, and Anandamaya Kosha, or the soul body. So Paramatma is the transcendent absolute as found within the individual soul, which is the same as Parashiva, the transcendent absolute found within Shiva. They're not different, but we have different words for them depending on where they're found. Are trances real? Do real gods occupy the person during a trance, or are they subconscious imaginings of that person? And a related question, why do the smaller gods come during a trance but not larger gods like Ganesha, Muruga, Siva, or Vishnu? Our Himalayan Academy lexicon gives this definition of trance. So again, I've turned to the lexicon, and we don't have the right slide, do we? Okay, I'll have to fix that slide for tomorrow. So ignore what it says on the screen. I didn't catch that. So what the lexicon says is, in spiritualism, trance describes the phenomenon in which an individual leaves the physical body and the disincarnate being enters or takes control of the body, often giving forth verbal messages to others in attendance, as in a seance. Trance can be either voluntary or involuntary. See mediumship. Involuntary means the person goes into a trance without making the decision to go into a trance. It just happens. Versus voluntary, the person has decided to go into a trance. Oh, in terms of it being real or not, it can be real. It's not always real, but it can be real in the sense that a being who does not have a physical body can be communicating with the person in a trance. However, you don't necessarily know who that being is. As to why Shiva, Murugan, or Ganesha do not express themselves through trances, I would imagine it is because they are in a higher or deeper world than the beings that do express themselves through trances. In other words, a person would have to go into a much deeper state to access Shiva, Murugan, or Ganesha than those who are simply going into trance. The beings that you communicate when you're in trance are closer to the earth plane. What kinds of blessings are there, and how could a devotee fully imbibe the vibrations of blessings received from Satguru, priests, deities, ancestors? The answer to that question would take a long, long time. So we're just taking part of it today. Concept of blessings received in the temple. Then we'll look at the other sources of blessings in future Zoom satsangs. So this is taking something from Path to Shiva to start with. So it doesn't quite start with the right words, but that's the easy way to start. Intellectually accepting that divinity is within us is, of course, only the first step. We need to find a way to actually experience that divinity. The simplest way presents itself when we visit a temple. A sincere devotee can experience divinity in and around the temple's murtis, the consecrated images of God and gods. The Sanskrit term for this holy vibration is sanidhya. Tamil is sanidhyam, which is defined as divine or holy presence, the manifestation or presence as of a deity. So that's right from both our lexicon and the Tamil lexicon, both say almost the same thing. Learning to experience a temple's sanidhya may take some time, especially if we have not been raised to be sensitive to the energy that radiates out from a sacred image or murti. So it won't happen for someone who's just trying it for the first time necessarily, and they may have to work at it for a while. So in terms of Gurudeva's terminology, Gurudeva generally called the sanidhya the darshan or shakti of the deity. This is also the same word as in Guru Mahasanidhyam, great presence. Gurudeva described this process. The reality of the Mahadevas and their darshan, blessings, can be experienced by the devotee through his awakened ajna vision, or more often as the physical sight of the image in the sanctum coupled with the inner knowing that he is there within the microcosm. This darshan can be felt by all devotees, becoming stronger and more defined as devotion is perfected. Well, that's telling us how we perceive it. It's a feeling. We get a feeling that there's a sacred energy present in the murti and radiating out from the murti. We don't see it, probably, and we're not seeing a vision of the deity. We're just feeling this energy. Here are 3 suggestions to help an individual become sensitive enough to experience the sanidhya radiating out from the murti. 1. Bring an offering. For each shrine at which you worship, this can be a flower garland, or fruit. The act of giving in this simple way makes you receptive to blessings. 2. Pay particular attention at the high point of the puja during the arati, when a large lamp is waved before the deity and bells are rung loudly. The blessings of the deity are strongest at this time. The importance of one-pointed presence is illustrated in an analogy. Most everyone has a favorite music which uplifts them. However, if the music is playing and the person is just thinking about something else, the music does not inspire. It is just background sound. Tending puja works the same way. If we pay attention, we receive the deity's blessings, feel uplifted, and experience our inner happiness. If we are mentally engaged in something else, we miss the divine presence before us. And third suggestion, sit after puja for 5 minutes with the murti in view. Absorb the sanidhya emanating from the murti. Be like a sponge soaking up water. For this to work, you need to empty yourself of extraneous thoughts and focus only on the murti. So if thoughts come up, just set them aside and say you'll face them later. Try and empty yourself, just like squeezing a sponge. You empty it, then it can take in something new. Once you're able to consistently experience the sanidhya in the temple, it is natural to take up the next level of practice. This is to create a sacredness in your home shrine through performing each day a simple puja, such as to Lord Ganesha. Over a period of years, you can learn to invoke a stronger and stronger sanctity in the home shrine, which eventually is powerful enough to radiate out to the other rooms in the home. Next question. My question is, does Lord Shiva, as well as Lord Vishnu, Lord Ganesha, etc., have a permanent body of light that has a face, arms, legs, etc., in the Shiva Loka or sixth dimension, or do they only take that kind of form during mystic visions? The answer is they always have a permanent body of light. However, the time of Mahapralaya is unique. Let's look at the definition of Mahapralaya. Mahapralaya, great dissolution, total annihilation of the universe at the end of a Mahakalpa. You have to look up Mahakalpa. I didn't try and define it. It's a long period of time. Mahapralaya, it is the absorption of all existence, including time, space, and individual consciousness, all the lokas, and their inhabitants into God Shiva. As the water of a river returns to its source, the sea, then Shiva alone exists in his three perfections until he again issues forth creation. In other words, at Mahapralaya, Shiva's body of light exists, but the bodies of light of all the other deities no longer exist. Clearly, Shiva's body of light is unique. And this idea applies to many denominations of Hinduism. They just don't use the word Shiva, they use the word Ishvara. So Ishvara is the Supreme Being's personal form. God is a person, Ishvara. So Ishvara at the time of Mahapralaya is the only being. So the only body of light that exists is that of Ishvara. And Ishvara to Saivites is Shiva. Next question. I find it difficult to understand, visualize Akasha as an element in contrast with the seemingly more tangible ones, fire, earth, air, and water. With what sense do we perceive Akasha? Also, how does Akasha as an element relate to the Akashic record, if at all? So, of course, I turn to our lexicon, explains two aspects of Akasha. First aspect, ether. The fifth and most subtle of the five elements, earth, air, fire, water, and ether. In the tattva system of 36 tattvas, it's 32. Whereas earth, the grossest of the five elements, is 36. So 32, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the five elements in that 36 tattva system. Then we get the other meaning. No, excuse me. This is a further explanation of ether. Empirically, the rarefied space or ethereal fluid plasma that pervades the universe's inner and outer. So I looked up plasma on the web in terms of a definition by physics. So this seemed to be a authoritative definition. Plasma is often called the fourth state of matter, along with solid, liquid, and gas. Just as a liquid will boil, changing into a gas when energy is added, Heating a gas will form a plasma, a soup of positively charged particles, ions, and negatively charged particles, electrons. So that's all I copied. So if you wanted to know more about it, you could just look up the word plasma in terms of how physics looks at it to deepen your understanding of Akasha as an element, the fifth element. Our lexicon also gives a second definition for Akasha. Esoterically, mind, the superconscious strata. So this is superconscious, has nothing to do with physical plane. Holding all that exists and all that potentially exists, wherein all happenings are recorded and can be read by clairvoyance. It is through psychic entry into this transcendental Akasha that cosmic knowledge is gathered, and the entire circle of time, past, present, and future, can be known. Space, Akasha, in this concept is a positive substance filled with unseen energies and intelligences. Contrast with the Western concept that space is the absence of everything and is therefore nothing in and of itself. So clearly these two aspects of Akasha as the fifth element and as a superconscious strata are clearly unrelated to one another. They're both forms of space, but totally different types of space. Then there's an interesting reference I found while studying this out from our scholar, Paramatma Shivacharya, Agama scholar, lists 6 different types of Akasha and relates them to the 5 faces of Sadashiva. This is a note he wrote to us a number of years ago. The theme that Akasha is the dominant element in the Erevan temple. But what makes something the dominant element? It's in the middle of the yantra. So the yantra for Erevan is Shivaya Nama. So Ya is in the middle, and Ya represents Akasha. Audible temple is Nama Shivaya. So she is in the middle and is fire. So Audible is a fire temple, and Erevan is Akasha, which is Chidambaram, and fire temple Tiruvannamalai we have. So read that again. The theme that Akasha is the dominant element in the Erevan temple inspires me to expose what has been said in the Yoga Pada of the Sarvokta Agama. There it has been told how to view the Panchamurtis in terms of Akasha. So these are the 5 faces of Sadashiva, which are also all in Erevan temple. Sajojata, Bhuta Akasha. So that's the physical elements, and that's the Sanskrit way of naming it. In other words, Akasha is like Dharma. There's so many different forms of Dharma, it's helpful to have a word in front of Dharma. Swadharma, Jati Dharma, Grahastha Dharma. So there's different forms of Akasha, and in Sanskrit there's different terms, so he's introducing them without explaining them. But we know what this one is, Sajojata, Bhuta. So those are the 5 physical elements, Bhuta. So the element of Akasha relates to Sajojata. Vamadeva relates to what's known as Para Akasha. Agora, Maha Akasha. Tapurusha, Surya Akasha. Ishana, Parama Akasha. Then his note continues, holding these 5 Akashas within its fold, the Chid Akasha shines forth as the 6th and transcendental space. Nature of these Akashas as related to the disciplines of Shiva Yoga has been detailed in that section of the Sarvokta Agama. So I just thought I'd introduce that. I don't have all the details on what each one is, and hopefully sometime we can get that from Sabaratna Shivacharya. It'd be very interesting to have a better explanation of how the Saiva Agamas look at Akasha, which is what that is. Second topic, self-control, which is the 51st character quality. From our workbook. And as usual, we ask you to define the character quality. In this case, it's self-control. How would you define self-control? The workbook gives this definition. Self-control means harnessing desires, emotions, and actions. I strengthen it by exercising willpower when I am tempted to play or eat too much or stay up too late. The opposite is self-indulgence. So these are all written for teenagers. That's why the particular examples are what they are. And Gurudeva's quotes, if you can see ahead that you will not react, proceed. Dictate to yourself, face your mistakes, and don't make them again. Breaking spiritual laws creates reactions in the subconscious, and man loses spiritual power. So what that means, of course, is before you act, think ahead and and anticipate what your reaction is going to be. So if you're not going to react in a negative way, then proceed. But if you are going to react in a negative way, try and figure out another course of action. You can't work at correcting something. You either do it or you don't do it. You don't work at not falling off a cliff, a big precipice that drops off 100 feet. You just don't step forward. That's what you don't do. So that's a way of talking about self-control. You just don't do it. You don't partially do it. Comparing the actions of one who is self-controlled to one who is self-indulgent. First situation, when your emotions get overly strong one day, you, self-controlled, use spiritual tools to harness them. Self-indulgent, go to the freezer to see if that gallon of milk, that gallon of mint chocolate surprise is still there, form of ice cream. Ice cream. Sweets satisfy the emotions. Second situation, when friends invite you to a senior party where there will be drinking, you, self-controlled, decline the invitation, explaining that you've seen too much of what alcohol can do. Self-indulgent, send caution to the wind and join them for a night of questionable fun. Third situation, when you realize that your health would benefit from losing 10 pounds, you, self-controlled, tell your sister you have promised to eat less, then keep your self-imposed pledge. Self-indulgent, promise you will do better, but after 2 days someone next to you orders grilled cheese and the rest is history. Grilled cheese is very popular in the West, grilled cheese sandwich. Reflection, take a moment to identify a few ways in which you could improve in self-control. And the assignment, during these 2 weeks, focus on the moments your instinctive mind tends to take over, and consciously use your willpower to not be indulgent. Thank you very much.